Yes, it's 11 o'clock. We're going to start with the webinar. For starting, thanks all for joining the webinar about the Cyber Command Center. First, we'll introduce ourselves, the ones who are speaking. My name is Milan Tiempont. I've been with Davinci Labs for 5 years. I'm the product owner of our managed detection and response service.
My name is Bastian Grams. I'm product manager for cybersecurity services at Proximus Next.
And my name is Maxime Eekhout. I'm product owner of their analytic workspace and with already 4 years at Davinci Labs.
Okay, so first, let's go over the agenda quickly. First, we're going to start with a short story why cybersecurity is evolving and why protection alone isn't enough anymore. Second, we're going over managed detection and response as a solution to this rise in cyber attacks. Third, we're going to talk about the Cyber Command Center and how the Cyber Command Center vision can elevate your security posture to go along with the rise in cyber threats. And fourth, we're going to zoom a little bit back and talk about how managed detection is part of the bigger picture as a cornerstone of a modern security strategy. So let's dive into the first topic: why cybersecurity, why protection isn't alone, why protection alone isn't enough anymore. So yeah, we all know the story about the rise in cyber attacks due to AI, making it easier than ever to create custom scripts. You don't need to be able to code anymore to write malware, to write ransomware. There's also the political tensions across the world that have clearly an impact on the rise in cyber attacks. So the question isn't if a company will be attacked; it's just a question of when. So companies see this in the news every day. Companies get attacked, all the time. So companies see this. They start investing heavily in protection. They're gonna invest in EDR solutions. They're gonna invest in WAFs, IDS. They're investing in a lot of preventive measures to stay one step ahead of those attackers. But what happens when your preventive controls fail? What if an attacker is able to shut down one of your defensive measures and is able to infiltrate in your organization? That's why prevention alone isn't enough anymore. You also need a second part, and that's detection. You need to be able to have visibility in your own network. You need to know what is happening within your organization to detect possible anomalies, possible hackers in your environment. If there is ever an attack in your organization, you need to have all the insights in one place, that you don't have to go from workstation to firewall to correlate all those events together. You need to be able to detect and correlate logs in a central place. Second, detecting alone is also not enough. You also need to be able to respond accordingly to those threats. You need to be able to quickly identify the threats, know what the right response actions are, and can be from informing the right operational units, or it can even go as far as contacting a CSIRT team, as a professional cyber team that will help you come on the ground, help you recover from cyber attacks. It's like a squad team that comes on site and helps you recover and contain and eradicate threats. So response is as important as detecting and prevention. So how does managed detection and response help organizations on top of the classic preventive measures they are taking today? So security monitoring in an MDR context consists of three main building blocks. The first one is data collection and platform. Second one is continuous detection. And the third one is incident response. So first of all, in order to have the correct insights into your organization, it's really important to know which data you have. So every company is different, has different kinds of technologies in-house. So before starting with this exercise of detecting and responding, it's really important to know which data sources you need to have in scope, which data an organization produces is valuable in a security context and what is not. So that's the first step, identifying which data is important in a security context. Yeah, so like I said, a company has a lot of different data points that will be interesting for their security posture. So we also need a central logging platform where we can store all this information and correlate it with each other. And that's why the SIEM capability has been increasing over the years. It's a central platform where you can store your security events. So you have your data, you have it all in a central platform. Now you need to be able to detect. That's the second pillar. Continuous detection, how to start. You need to create a detection library. Detection library is a set of different kinds of detection rules that you can build on top of your data. For example, you have the authentication logs. A possible detection that is important for your organization can be to detect brute forces against important accounts, for example. So you need to start creating those detections on top of your data. But you can create a lot of detections. There are millions of different kinds of attacks. That's why it's very important when you're detecting to have focus. So that's why the MITRE Attack Navigator, for example, is a really important tool. It shows the different phases an attacker goes through while performing an attack and describing the different kinds of techniques an attacker can leverage to go to the next stage. So based on this, a company can evaluate which attacks are the most important for their specific industry. They can look at previous attacks, breaches in their same industry, can map it to the relevant techniques that have been used by the attackers, and can start creating the detections that matter most for them, the detections that will create them the most value because they know they are relevant for their specific industry. So detect with focus based on the attack navigator. Another point of detection could be to leverage threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is intelligence about threats, the word says, which is shared across the globe, across different kinds of organizations. They share information about possible attackers that they see in their network. They share it with the world. So you can use that information to filter the threat intelligence feeds, the information that is applicable to your organization, and you can start by hunting based on the threat intelligence. So for example, an IP is shared from the CCB that a Russian attacker is targeting your organization. Is that an organization from a certain IP is attacking, you can use that IP and check it on your own data to see if you're under attack by that same organization as flagged by the CCB, for example. So that's how you can detect using threat intelligence. So now you have all these different kinds of alerts from your detections from threat intelligence, giving you indications that something malicious is going on. Now, having detection alone isn't enough. You also need to be able to respond correct on those alerts. So that's why there's a third pillar, and that's the incident response part of it. You need eyes on screen. When there's an alert with a high criticality, you need to be able to react as fast as possible. That's why most of the organizations have a 24/7 SOC that is going over all the different kinds of alerts that are being triggered from your on your SIEM or based on threat intelligence. They're going to investigate and determine if a possible alert is a true positive or a false positive, which removes the incidents that are not really incidents. Then from the true positive, it's important that they alert the right responders. So that can be operational teams. Let's say there's a DDoS going on, the SOC sees it, they can inform the network team, for example, so they are in the loop and know that they can block a certain IP, for example. Of, like I said before, it could be that the attacker is already in an advanced stage where they have probably backdoors and have done lateral movement. So in that case, the SOC can contact the CSIRT team, which is the professional squad which will help with contain, eradicate, and recover from a threat. So this is the short, procedure that you do in a response scenario. It's identification, it's identifying the threats. That's what you do mostly with your detections. Then the containment is something where CSIRT or the operational teams or the SOC team will help, where they're going to contain the threat to make sure that it doesn't spread across different kinds of servers. Then you have the eradication phase, that's the removal of the threat actor, so like removing the malware, password resetting a user. Then you have the recovery phase, that's the phase where you make your operations back running again. So for the containment, you have maybe done an isolation of a workstation. You can, in the recovery, it was possible, it has to be wiped, the station. So in the recovery, you're going to load a backup, for example, to make everything up and running again. And then you go over the lessons learned part. That's a part where you're going to do a retro about the things that have happened and how you can avoid them in the future. So that's things that your SOC and your CSIRT team and operational teams will have to work together to make the correct response. So now that's the basic outline of a traditional MDR service. My colleague Maxime is going to tell you a bit more about how our vision about the Cyber Command Center will elevate this traditional SOC and how companies can stay up to date with the rise in cyber attacks.
Okay, thank you, Milan. So first we'll take a look at a couple of levels we've defined. So we can define a couple of levels of security operations centers, and each representing a step forward in capabilities. And these levels illustrate the evolving of SOC maturity. For us, level 5 represents the fusion SOC, the future state we aspire, and it's unlike traditional SOCs. The fusion SOC also goes beyond ingestion and detection. It also integrates advanced capabilities such as proactive threat hunting, realistic attack simulations, and deep correlation of security data across the organization. So the fusion SOC is the foundation of the Cyber Command Center's vision. And taking a step back and thinking about what Milan also introduced, the traditional approach is quite linear. And so it's divided in 3 main phases. We have the build, the operate, and the response part. First, the specialized team builds use cases and detection logic, setting the foundation for what the SOC will monitor. Once these are developed, they're handed over to a SOC team who are responsible for the day-to-day monitoring and detection. Most incidents are handled directly by the SOC team. However, when a security issue becomes more complex or requires deeper forensic analysis, the SOC incident is escalated to a CSIRT specialized response team. This structure can lead to delays and missed insights, as collaboration is rather limited due to the linear approach. And we will see how the Cyber Command Center transforms this process, enabling more and seamless proactive security operations. Next to the traditional approach and the 3 phases, we also have a funnel which represents the overwhelming volume of data that security teams must process every day. Logs, alerts, and events pour in from across the organization, creating a constant stream of information that needs to be analyzed. As this data is filtered through the SOC, it can trigger many security incidents or alerts, many of which require investigation or response. The scale of this workload puts significant stress on traditional SOC teams and often leading to alert fatigue, missed threats, and slower response times. This challenge highlights the need for a new approach, one that can handle high volumes of alerts which are handled efficiently and, for example, are prioritized or prioritize the most critical threats. So we need to strive for 10 times better. To truly overcome today's security challenges, incremental improvements are not enough. We need to strive for a tenfold leap in how we operate. This means transforming collaboration across teams, enhancing the fidelity of our use cases to reduce the false positives and misthreats, and drive efficiency through our processes. The Cyber Command Center is designed to deliver on all these fronts, enabling seamless teamwork, smarter detection, and faster, more efficient responses. So remember, traditionally, the build, operate, and response phase have been managed by separate teams, working in a linear fashion with limited interaction. Each team would complete its task and then hand off the responsibility to the next group, often resulting in communication gaps, duplicate efforts, and slower response times. We establish daily delegates within the Cyber Command Center who come together to coordinate activities, share insights, and balance workloads. This ensures not one single team is overwhelmed and that the expertise is always available where it's most needed. With the Cyber Command Center, we're moving away from the siloed approach and embracing a fully integrated model. Here, teams form each phase side by side. So we want to foster daily collaboration and shared accountability across the organization. But integration goes beyond daily operations, of course. We're also committed to building a culture of continuous improvement and learning together with knowledge sharing. By implementing some things like job rotation programs, team members can experience different roles and responsibilities. Not only broadens their skill set, but also deepens their understanding of the entire security operations process. It helps break down barriers, encourages empathy between teams, and ensures that critical knowledge is distributed through the organization. Ultimately, this integrated approach transforms the way we respond to threats. It enables faster, more informed decision-making, reduces the risks of errors, and creates a more resilient and agile security operation. But integration is not enough. We also need to have a better fidelity. So let's talk about use case fidelity. It's a crucial factor in the effectiveness of a security operation center. Fidelity in its context is all about the accuracy and reliability of our detection use cases. High fidelity use cases generate alerts that are truly relevant and minimize the false alarms and misthreats. This means our teams can also focus on what really matters rather than getting bogged down by noise. Measuring fidelity involves tracking how often our alerts correctly identify real security incidents versus false positives. We look at metrics like the ratio of true positives to false positives, and we regularly validate our use cases through testing, simulations, or real-world incident reviews. This ongoing measurement helps us understand which use cases are effective and which needs improvement. But the real value comes from what we do with these insights. By analyzing fidelity data, we can fine-tune our detection rules, streamline our response processes, and ensure our resources are focused on the most impactful threats. It's a cycle of continuous improvement that keeps us one step ahead. The Cyber Command Center embraces the principles of continuous detection and response, a framework pioneered by Google. And this approach emphasizes ongoing monitoring and rapid adaptation, ensuring our defenses evolve alongside emerging threats. Within CCC, security engineers and SOC analysts work hand in hand to develop, test, and refine use cases. Importantly, the same experts who build these use cases are also responsible for operating them from time to time. This creating a seamless feedback loop between detection and response. This close collaboration leads to higher fidelity, more actionable alerts, and security operations that is both agile and resilient. Efficiency is the backbone of a high-performing SOC. Today's SOC teams are occupied with alerts, repetitive tasks, and investigations. Challenges that quickly overwhelm even the most skilled analyst. This is where SOAR comes into place. SOAR platforms revolutionize security operations by automating routine processes and orchestrating workflows across multiple tools. Tasks that once took hours can now be handled in minutes or even seconds. By reducing the mean time to detect and respond to incidents, SOAR not only improves operational efficiency, but also helps prevent analysts from burnout and allows teams to focus on threats that truly matter. With SOAR, our analysts no longer need to jump between consoles and perform manual checks on multiple systems. Instead, they can rely on automated playbooks to investigate, contain, and remediate incidents swiftly and consistently. This streamlining of workflows not only enhances productivity, but also strengthens the entire security posture by ensuring nothing falls through the cracks. Looking more ahead, the future of SOC efficiency can be in the integration of, for example, artificial AI. AI-powered SOC assistants are already emerging, capable of analyzing vast amounts of data, identifying patterns, and even predicting potential threats before they materialize. By combining the automation of SOAR with the intelligence of AI, tomorrow's SOC will be able to handle even greater volumes of alerts. And now let's see an example case from detection to eradication. So let's say a SIEM or a XDR notices a suspicious file on a laptop. What would happen next is that an alert is triggered either by the XDR or the use case in the SIEM, and the SOC is alerted. SOC can then trigger a response playbook, which causes a couple of follow-up actions. And the SOAR playbook starts, and the operational team is automatically involved with it through, for example, an automated ticket that is made in their ITSM. But next to that, the isolated or the infected laptop is also directly isolated. The SOC can also check the alert further and, for example, run a playbook to update the firewall rules to block the malicious file. Can search the SIEM to see if other endpoints are as well impacted. And we can, for example, use an integration in our SOAR with Defender for Office to also delete the file in the Office 365 mailboxes. Now, Bastiaan will talk more about how the managed detection and response is a cornerstone of a modern cybersecurity strategy.
Thank you, Maxime. So what we've seen is how we will improve with the Cyber Command Center, the managed detection and response solution. In itself, it's a very important cornerstone of the cybersecurity strategy. And what we've seen with many of our customers is that actually they are embracing digital transformation in a small or a large extent, which enables organizations to become more digital, more agile, and more effective in doing their business. And what we see is that this digital transformation actually creates new needs as digital assets are exposed to the internet, as processes are digitalized, which were not supposed to be digitalized, and as, for example, also tools like operational technologies getting exposed again to the internet. Which means that in order to be able to do a successful and secure digital transformation, our organizations are looking for new outcomes or new things that they want to achieve with their security strategy. And these outcomes or these steps that they want to achieve are information protection, compliance enforcement, and resilience. And I'll dive a bit deeper in each of these three. The first one being information protection. Information data is the new gold, is said many times now. Basically, for most organizations, especially knowledge-focused organizations, data information is crucial. If it's leaked, or if it's made unavailable, or if processes are not working anymore, it has a huge impact on organizations, both from a competitive perspective as well as from an operational perspective. And a very important question for most of our organizations is your critical information and are your vital processes, are they actually protected but also monitored? And that's where managed detection and response comes in play. You need to have not only protective layers to protect, for example, your information, to have a number of protection layers to prevent data from leaking, for example. In many organizations, we see that they're struggling with where the information is located, whether it's in the cloud or on a mobile device or on a laptop, and also who's using the information, who has access to this information. And it does make a difference. For example, if you have an employee sharing large volumes of data with a marketing firm, that could be perfectly benign behavior. But if an employee who might have the ambition to move to another company starts to upload all sorts of information externally, which is privacy sensitive or which is confidential, or also if a hacker somehow has attained access to your organization and starts exfiltrating data as a first step in, for example, a ransomware attack, it's very important to closely monitor the information to know which information is important and which is maybe less important, and to constantly monitor whatever is happening with this information so that you can stop these exfiltration of data, that you can stop potential encryption of data, that you can stop it as soon as possible, and that you can respond to it, to block it, and to restore this information to minimize the impact on your organization. As a second outcome, for many organizations, it's also not a matter of wanting to improve, but also you are forced to improve your cybersecurity maturity from a compliance perspective, and whether it's GDPR, which is already in place, of course, for many years now, or NIS2, which is a very actual topic that most organizations are struggling with. In all those legislations, there are very strict requirements regarding detection and response capabilities. If you look at GDPR and NIS2, for example, both of them, they prescribe that you are capable of detecting and reporting security breaches within certain timeframes, for example, 72 hours. And you need to be able to provide very extensive reports on what happened, how it could happen that you have a data exploitation, for example, or a breach of your systems. And you need to be able to provide this information to the authorities. So from a compliance perspective, there is also a enforcement actually of having detection and response in place. And we see both challenges with our customers on knowing, do we have to be NIS2 compliant? To what extent are we already NIS2 compliant? And then thirdly, most organizations don't have the skills and people in-house to actually be able to deliver detection and response, especially 24/7. The third reason that we see, or the third outcome that we see that our organizations like to achieve, is resilience. Resilience both in being able to prevent attacks from happening, but also to be able to quickly respond actually to disruptions caused by cyber attacks. Because in the end, it's no longer a matter of will I be attacked, but it's a matter of when will I be attacked, and there's no 100% security anymore. So many organizations have shifted their strategy from purely focusing on protection and adding more layers of protection on top to actually become resilient in making sure that the impact of a successful attack is reduced to a minimum. And that's where you need detection and response to be in place in order to detect such breaches quickly and to be able to respond to those breaches imminently to make sure that the impact is reduced to a minimum. And that's where the most successful companies in reducing the impact, those have invested in these type of functionalities. So if these are the outcomes that our organizations are trying to achieve, you need a strategy which supports it. And for this, you see that there is a real, already for quite some time that there is a new paradigm, a new mantra in the cybersecurity world, which is called zero trust. And the real mantra of zero trust is never trust, always verify. In itself, the zero trust framework is already around for 15 years now, but it has seen a slow but steady adoption in many organizations. And I think today we see that the majority of the organizations are embracing it fully, or at least taking some of the concepts at heart. If you look at zero trust, it's built on 3 pillars. First one is that you can no longer assume that there's a sort of a parameter or a circle that you can trust, and everything outside is untrusty. Basically, you should not trust anything, and you should always verify. For example, the identity. You should always verify if the device is actually the device that is supposed to have access. So it's really a matter of putting the protection layers to the elements which are to be protected, which is nowadays your information, like we said before, the network, etc. Second one is least privilege. So basically, you only give access to people, but also to services, to servers, to access to APIs, for example, only for limited amounts of time, on only you give them only access, the access that they actually need to execute their task. So it's again there, your default state is you don't trust the access, you only elevate the privileges for the time and the skills which are needed, or the validation that you only give access whenever it's needed for whatever it's needed. And the third pillar, and that's where, of course, managed detection and response plays a very important role. You should assume breach. Your state of mind should be that you should assume that at any moment in time there is a hacker or an attacker on your network or in your devices, or having access to information. And that's where you need to constantly monitor your assets and constantly apply detection and response 24/7. If you look at the way NIST 2 or Zero Trust was implemented in the meantime by standardization organizations, you see that NIST, and not to be confused with NIST 2, NIST is a standardization organization, and they have built and updated since 2010. They've built the cybersecurity framework, and in the latest version, they have identified now 6 functions which are to be implemented at all strategy. And these functions are protect, which is for many years, of course, the cornerstone of security, but now also to detect, which is again a link with detection and response, to respond as well, to recover, which is very important from a resilience perspective, and where a quick detection and response is very important in as well. And identify. And identify is, for example, where the threat intelligence plays a big role. And as a sixth function, they added last year govern, which is basically the whole management of the cybersecurity strategy. That is a very important aspect as well. On the other hand, you see that with the concept of that you can't trust the perimeter anymore, you also see that there's an increasing number of security controls, and there are multiple frameworks in the market, but we've condensed it to these 5 assets, which are to be protected as part of a zero trust concept, being information, so data, applications, but also nowadays, of course, AI, large language models, etc. The networks, even though they're less the focal point of the entire cybersecurity strategy, they're still very important, of course. Hybrid cloud. So whether it's your on-site data center or it's in a public cloud like Azure, AWS, Google, etc. Your data needs to be protected there as well. It's not the responsibility of these cloud providers as such. A very important one is identity, because nowadays you don't know where your identities are, where your people are. So you need to make sure that whenever someone authenticates or tries to get access to information, tries to get access to assets, that you actually know that this person is the person who should be granted access. So you need to have the authentication, authorization, etc. in place. And last but not least is the workplace and things, where you see that both, of course, the workplace has changed a lot. So it's not only desktops anymore, it's laptops, but also mobile devices and other ways to access your information as an employee, but also IoT and OT, so Internet of Things and operational technology is increasingly important as well. Within Proximus, we've translated this to a blueprint or a framework which we always check with our customers to see if everything is actually covered in their cybersecurity strategy, and it's what we really recommend our organizations to look at. The controls at the heart, at the center. So to see if basically all these different elements are protected, but also if detection and response is applied to these. And that's where the functions of the NIST framework actually are added on top. On all these 5 controls, you need to apply both security governance as well as protection, detection, and response, recover, and identify as functions. That brings us to the end of our webinar. I would like to bring your attention to our next Cyber Live webinar, which is on the 10th of July at 11 o'clock. We'll share a link with how to register afterwards. I'd like to thank you all for attending, and I wish you also on behalf of Maxime and Milan a very nice day.
Proximus Next. Think possible.